This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Fyodor Ship III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. Our guest today was an All-American linebacker and captain of the University of Michigan Wolverines football team. He manages businesses, ventures for Fortune 500 companies such as Amazon, McDonald's, and Tyson Foods. His personal client portfolio has included Tiger Woods, Derek Jeter, and Venus and Serena Williams. He combined a sales career with an athletic career and is currently the vice president of sales for Smith & Nephew Incorporated, a global medicinal technology company. He holds an undergraduate degree in sports management and communications and a graduate degree in kinesiology, both from the University of Michigan. Today, we are privileged to speak with Texan Jarrett Irons. Jarrett, welcome to the DDP.
Man, appreciate having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to get this right out. Stuff I'm fascinated and interested about. Is Texas high school football really as intense as they say it is? Because I've heard they got like stadiums down there for high schools bigger than some colleges and things like that.
It's very true. When I playing in the big houses was definitely a joy for me. But I was, and obviously 100 and some thousand fans. But I was kind of used to playing in front of big crowds because, in Texas football, Friday Night Lights is real. I mean, we played in front of 10 and 12,000 every Friday night.
Wow.
Yeah, Texas it's a religion down there.
Okay. And one other question, I just got to ask: is Kyler Murray the best player to ever come out of Texas for real?
No, he's not.
I've been hearing that all over the place. They say he won so many championships.
No, he's not. No, he's not. But no, there's some true talent, man. I mean, Texas, that state, man, they believe it. They breed it, man. There's a lot of talent that comes out of that place.
Okay. So I'm really curious, what was the pitch, U of M? How did the coaches convince you to come all the way up north from Texas?
My parents did a great job of, there's three boys in our family. My older brother played for Nebraska for Tom Osborne. He's 3 years older than me. And my younger brother played at Notre Dame. My mom and dad were very adamant that, you take meetings from anyone that wanted to see us. And every school recruited me, and I had options. But what stood, for me that stood out for Michigan is that I wanted to go somewhere that had a great tradition, great academics, and life after sports. For me, football was great, but it was never one of those things. Having a dad to play NFL for 10 years for John Madden and for the Raiders and the Browns. My dad, when we were younger, he was getting his MBA from University of Chicago during the off seasons. And so, I'd see him, studying all the time and working hard. I'm like, Dad, why are you doing this? He's like, listen, football is not the end all be all. There's life after sports. So that was ingrained in me at an early age. And so I knew that I needed to go somewhere that had a great academic institution, great tradition, but also allow me to have opportunities once I got done playing. I never wanted to play. I wish I would have played in the NFL a little longer, but I never really wanted to play. It was never my goal to play a long time in the NFL.
Okay. That's interesting. You
understand. So when Michigan came to recruit me, they knew I was going to redshirt. So they, Gary Moeller and Lloyd Carr and Cam Cameron, they were the ones that recruited me. They knew that I was going to redshirt. I was going to have 5 years. So I said right off the bat, if I graduate in 4 years, my fifth year I want to start my master's. And will you pay for that? And Gary Moeller was like, once you take less classes, you have 5 years. Most guys do that, and it'll be easier for you. And I was like, well, listen, if that's the case, I'm not coming. I want to graduate in 4 years, and that was my goal. And I want to start my master's. And because I was all about life after.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main reasons why I chose Michigan. They agreed to that, and they paid my master's after I was done.
That's outstanding. No, I remember, I went to U of M as an undergrad as well. I remember hanging out with some football players, and they said that you all would do straw polls throughout the year. I was like, who all expects to go pro? And he'd be like, one year he's like, 90% of the players thought they were going pro. And he's like, no, you're not going pro.
Well, growing up, my dad played 10 years in the league, so I never forget what stood out for me. One day, after the game, you're in the locker room, and And one day I was in there, and as a young kid, I saw one of my dad's teammates crying at his locker. And it just, as a young man, when you see a grown man cry, you
Yeah.
like seeing your dad cry, it throws you off when you're a young kid. So I'll never forget this is the moment that changed my whole life. So I'm in there and I'm seeing this guy cry. I'm asking my dad, I'm like, Dad, why is he crying? And he's like, Jarrett, you know what? Once I get dressed and we go home, I'll tell you when we get in the car. Just sit tight. So we get in the car and he's like, he said, Jared, you see why I'm studying all the time in the off seasons, why I'm working on my master's? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. He said, well, the reason why I'm doing that is because when football is over, I'm gonna have something to fall back on. He said the reason why that guy was crying, he just, back then it was really cutthroat in the NFL.
Yeah.
So after that game, they had just cut him,
Wow.
and he didn't have a degree. He didn't know what he was gonna do. And he had young kids. And so that changed my whole perspective. I can't remember how old I was at that time, but it really, I never forgot that. And it's driven me to this day. You know what I mean? That's why I've always, done a lot of different things and entrepreneurial things. And just, that's why I wanted to finish my master's and, about that whole life after sports. It was never, football never defined me. I was good at it, but it was just a vehicle to do what I'm doing now.
Okay. And that's what I said. What advice would you give to a young man who wants to play college football today?
Oh, I think college football was wonderful. I loved it. I think it's a great avenue to open a lot of doors. I think if you have the talent to do it, why not? And but I would also say that listen, work hard. I mean, it's tough. It's a grind. It's a business. I mean, just because they say we're collegiate athletes, but it's all a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business.
Well, speaking of the business, a great segue. How do you think Michigan should use the new NIL rules to help attract recruits?
I think it's great. I think that they need to, look, this has been going on. I grew up in down south, so they've been paying players like under the table for years. It's just legal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so the SEC, they're used to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Michigan is not. They've been about the by the book all the time. I just think that I love it because obviously during our time at Michigan. If we had this, I mean, I probably would have walked away as a millionaire. Yeah, those 37 jerseys sold a lot. So, but no, I'm happy for these players. Now it's evening the playing field. One, to help recruits, but more importantly, the student athletes. These universities are making a ton of money. And there has never been anything for the players. I mean, for example, for a coach to be making, look at Saban making 10, 12 million a year, and his players are struggling just to be able to give money to their family or have food. You know what I mean? I mean, a scholarship. Don't get me wrong. That's a great compensation, but it's not enough. And the fact that a coach can just come to your house, recruit you, tell you all these lies about how they want you, and then get a better deal and leave to go somewhere else, and you have no recourse. I just think that the new rules have made it more equal for players to take advantage of opportunities.
Well, I've been hearing. Well, it's funny you say that because I've been hearing from. I have a bunch of friends who do like little league coaching and they keep up with their kids throughout. I've been hearing this. The transfer portal is really hurting high school kids. They're not getting recruited. They're not getting offers the same as they have because these college kids are moving around so much.
I never thought of it from that standpoint. I really haven't. I mean, that's an interesting. I mean, I've never thought of. I mean, that I could see that being the case, but I think in all, look, if this is something you're passionate about and you're good at, and if you're good enough, you'll get an opportunity. I mean, they'll always find you. I mean, everybody wants to blame shift and say, well, because of this is why I didn't get this or they didn't recruit me. But trust me, if you're good enough, they will get you. They will come get you.
Yeah. So, how did playing football help you prepare for your professional career?
The work ethic, the grind, just how hard it is and competitive it is. I mean, life is very competitive, and sports is a microcosm of life, and it's taught me that listen, if you want it, you need to work for it, and it's not just because. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you're going to succeed. So I think one thing I loved about Michigan has such a storybook history in how that university and that program, how like when we would go into games and like the games that we won, I probably got cursed out more for those games than the games that we won. I mean, than we lost. You know what I mean? Because when you win, it's the standard of Michigan that listen, it's never good enough. You can always get better, and I think that's what taught me that to always stay humble because you can never get the big head when you're playing at Michigan because they humble you all the time because it's about tradition. You're not playing against. It's not only are you playing against the team that you're playing against, you're playing against the tradition. The person that wore that number before you, the one that wore that winged helmet. The standards are very high, and that's. I think playing for that university that's what's helped me in whether it be business or just life in general.
So what drew you into sales, and what do you find most appealing about it, and at the same time, what do you find most challenging about it?
Well, I think getting back to the competitive edge. I mean, sales. My dad used to say it all the time. Sales starts when they say no. And that's when the selling process starts. No, I think for me, I love the challenge. I love to problem solve. And a lot of times in sales, no matter what industry you work in, now I'm obviously in medical device, but you're always trying to solve a problem and bring something that's going to make them better. So I love that, and I love to be able to one help, but then it's so competitive too, because just because I might think that I sell knee and hip replacement, and my team does, and they might think that my knee and hip is better, but there's somebody else doing the same thing for another company, and it's why is this surgeon choosing to use my product, and it's thinking about the different nuances and the competitiveness of that, and I think that's what kind of has always driven me to this industry.
So does being a former athlete give you any type of competitive edge for that? I mean, knee and hips, you think lots of former athletes have those issues later in life. I mean, is there some type of, subliminal shorthand or just understanding?
Well, I think you understand the anatomy a lot easier,
Yeah.
and obviously with my kinesiology background, that helps. But I think also too, it's just I think when I deal in orthopedics, so most of those surgeons are former athletes or love sports or in some capacity. But I think playing sports and being in this industry, I think it does help. I think it's the industry likes former military, former athletes because you're used to being pushed. You're used to a regiment. You're used to fighting hard no matter what you do. And I think that those are just natural things that just come about, from playing sports.
That's interesting. It makes me think about the time when, before Jim Harbaugh was named the coach at Michigan, when he was at Stanford, he was throwing shots at Michigan about Michigan grads not getting jobs or not getting quality jobs or things like that. How do you? I mean, we talked about it. Like, what do you say to young people, or how do you reconcile with athletes now who are, how do you really make them see that life after? That, yes, football, even if you got a 15-year, even if you had a Tom Brady-like career in NFL, there's got to be life after.
Well, you're
How
going
do
to
you see
retire
that?
at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't play football forever. You know what I mean? And like when my dad finished, I think my dad was probably in his early 30s, or my dad played 10 years in the league. So, my dad went off. Like I said, he got his MBA, he got his law degree. So, he understood that. But not everybody's going to have that foresight to go that route. I think that for me, what I tell young people, and maybe I'm biased because obviously, going to University of Michigan, the University of Michigan is a special place, and it's not for everyone, but it's a special, special place, and it's a place where it opens a lot of doors. It's the credibility of that university, and what it's changed my life, and so I love it. I mean, and I always will, and obviously having a younger brother going to Notre Dame, I rip him all the time. But it's I think for just sports in general, I think it opens the door and allows people to have opportunities if they take advantage of them.
Okay. So you mentioned that you orthopedics, knee and hip surgery. What's unique about the products that you represent?
I think some of the metals, some of the the materials that they use. I think also some of the techniques, but I mean, I think that's what that company, the company I work. But I do a lot of things outside of that. I mean, I
Okay.
work in health. I'm more about healthcare, more of a healthcare solution oriented
Okay.
individual. So my brother and I actually, the one who went to Notre Dame, he and I are business partners on a lot of things in the medical space. And so obviously, Total Joints is one of my main businesses that I work in. But we do a lot of medical IT. We do a lot of with medical software that helps hospitals prevent falls. I mean,
Okay.
we touch a lot of different things in the medical field.
Oh, that's dope. Okay.
But obviously Total Joints is something that
Yeah,
I
no, I got
do.
to get on my research team to find some more stuff.
Yeah.
But so being a leader, again, you captain of a football team. How do you motivate your sales team? How do you push your team
I
to
think
do things?
mostly it's by lead by example. I mean, you look at, I think back, in Michigan, being elected captain twice, one as a junior, you got to think about it. There's 50 year seniors there that voted for me to lead them. And,
Only one of 5 or 6 juniors in the history of the football team be voted captain.
Yes, yeah, which is that's probably my greatest honor
Yeah.
that I've ever accolade I've ever attained because you got to think about it. It takes a lot for someone older than you to ask you to lead them, and it's just for me how I motivate my teams and how I've done when I was at Michigan or whether it be anybody that works for me or my sales teams now. I'm never going to ask them to do something I'm not going to do myself. I lead by example, but I also, I let them know that look, whatever you're going through, I've been through it, but two, I'm here for you, and I'm here. I'm gonna work it just. I'm not gonna be outworked, and that's. I think that's what when you show that and show that as a leader and as a boss, I think that disarms people to understand it. Like, man, he's still out here grinding like this, and man, I need to step my game up. And to me, it's always about winning and about and whether it be in sales, whether it be on the field, it's doing your best and winning. I mean, that's the way I've been very competitive all my life. And you look at our family. My dad, doing well and playing football. My older brother and then my younger brother. You got to think about it. I'm probably out of the Michigan history. I was fifth at the time. John Jansen got two-time captain after me, but you look at my brother at Notre Dame. He was a two-time captain at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think what for me is our family legacy of what my dad was captain at the Raiders and the Browns. So it's just that leadership it flows through us. We've all, in every sport I've ever been in or anything I've ever done, I've always led. So it's just something I expect. And that's why,
Say the Iron Boys is taking charge. Okay.
the Irish boys are
Okay.
tired. We've done some things.
Yeah. So now again, you've had a long career. You spent a lot of time in Chicago. I'm curious, what made you pick to live in Detroit? 'Cause even if your job sent you here, you could have moved anywhere in the metro area. What made you pick the city proper?
It's funny. So I lived downtown for 17 years in Chicago. Loved it. I still work in Chicago, so I have business there. Loved it. Loved it. I grew up obviously in the Woodlands, Texas, very affluent, suburban, area, and which is nice. So when I came to Ann Arbor, that was my first time really away from home. And in Ann Arbor, I love Ann Arbor, but it's like living in the suburbs. When I moved downtown Chicago, it changed my whole perspective of living in the city and just the grind of the city. I've always loved that. And so my company asked me to take over the state of Michigan on the Total Joint side. And my wife is from Detroit,
Okay.
and so I met my wife in Chicago, but she's from Detroit. Her mother actually, when we were in school, her mother was getting her grad degree from University of Michigan. So she
Go
lived in
blue.
Ann Arbor, when she was younger. But anyways, went to Cass Tech, so she's from Detroit.
Go green, go white.
Yeah, you trust me.
Yeah.
My wife throws it in my face all the time.
Yeah.
But when I came to my company moved me out here to Michigan. It's funny. A lot of people were asking me, "Are you going to move to Birmingham? Are you going to move Bloomfield? Are you going to go back to Ann Arbor?" And I was, first and foremost, I was like, my wife grew up in the city. I want to be in the city after living in Chicago. So I looked at homes always in the city, and I never wanted. I work in the burbs all the time, but and I grew up in the burbs, but I'm a city guy. I want to be in the mix. So that's why, and I can't be happier. My family is tremendously happy. We're blessed to be here.
Okay. Well, and speaking of your family, how do you balance your family life with your career responsibilities and goals and ambitions?
That's a great question. I think growing up in a household with a dad that is successful as he was, and such a family man. My dad never missed games. I mean, I was at Michigan. I think my when I played in Michigan, he never missed a game. He'd fly all the time to whether it's away or whatever. My mom and dad were very very active, and I think how I balance is I'm doing what I saw growing up. My parents were very involved in our lives and showed what family was about. And so, I have a 7 and 4 year old, two daughters, and I try to live up to what I have. You always want to give your kids more than what you had. And I have big shoes to fill, so I think that's what and I want them to have that. And so, I think also having a partner, my wife Giselle, is my best friend. I mean, and I think we work very a great team. And growing up, I saw how my dad's an entrepreneur as well, so he's had multiple businesses, and seeing my mom and dad work together as a team and raise us as boys. And obviously, you look at my mom and dad never paid for college. I mean, to have a Nebraska scholarship, Michigan and Notre Dame. It's watching them is kind of helping me to guide me. I had the template. I was raised in the template. So for me, I think that's the best way to balance it. But I think that there was always a lot of love in our family when I grew up, and there's a ton of love in my family now, raising these girls in Detroit. So I think that's the best way that I try to do it. Just, emulate what I grew up with.
Okay. So, as you've been in the city now for 3 or 4 years now, what are some of the things outside of your entrepreneurial pursuits and business pursuits are you involved in or active with?
I'm on a board of it's called Gear. It's a board that basically helps local schools here, provide gear for athletic programs. There's a lot of schools here in Detroit that aren't doing well with gear, so we'll try to provide that, and use some of my relationships to kind of help with that. That's one area. And for me, this city, and I know you and I were talking about this earlier. Detroit is a special place. It is a special place to me. I've never lived in a place like this. And, growing up in Texas and living in Chicago for a long time, I was very connected in Chicago, but connected business wise, but never from a community standpoint ever feel like I feel in this city. And I think the reason why I feel this way is because the people here. Detroiters are just real people, and they're everybody's gonna work hard and do their thing, and I think for me, as much travel as I've done and the places I go, it's funny when I used to see people all the time. They said, "Where do you live? Where and I say Chicago, and they're like, "Oh man, you live in Chicago, it's great." And then when I run into people now, they're like, "You live in Detroit? Are you serious? Where are you living?" And I tell them all the time, I say, "Look, you guys are missing out. Detroit is a gold mine. It's the people, the culture, and the community of this place. I tell people all the time, I'm gonna die in the city. I'm done. I mean, it's fun when I bought my last house. We were like, this is the last time I'm moving. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna die in this city, and I'm gonna give this city everything I can, because I just love the grit of the people. I love and then Michigan's down the street, so that helps. But there's so much this city gives, but I think there's so much that we can do here. The bones of this city are strong, and I think having more people like myself. I know when I first moved here, I think 3.5 years ago, there were a few articles that I did with Free Press, and I think with Detroit News, about me moving here. And what I was, conveying is that, listen, I'm here for a reason. God brought me here for a reason. Obviously, it's great for my family, but I want to impact this city. And I want to help in any way I can, use my relationships, my Michigan background, whatever I can do. And I don't know what it is. I want to help this place because I just think it's special to me. I'm raising two young girls in this city, and I want to give it all that I have.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome. So, how do you take care of yourself? How do you practice self care?
I think for me, I think when I bought my house, I put a gym in my house, so that
Okay.
that helps. So I work. Well, I had to. I have lower back issues, so like I try to obviously stay in shape. Obviously, since my playing days, but when I don't work out, my back doesn't work as well. So, for me, I just try to stay active with that, running, chasing a 7 and 4 year old. I mean, that'll keep you,
Keep
that'll
you
keep you moving too.
spry. Yeah.
But no, I think, one of the things I wanted like I said, I moved around a lot, and I was like, listen, the next place I'm moving to, I need to find a house that has the capability of me putting a gym in. I really wanted to put a nice gym to where I don't have to leave the house, and I can, obviously stay in shape best I can. And I'm never going to be in the shape I was when I played, but I try to stay as best I can.
Okay. Well, you're looking good, man. You're
Well,
looking
thank
real
you.
good.
No,
Yeah.
I appreciate
You
it.
probably lost weight since your playing days.
I don't eat train table anymore. I don't need.
Those free steaks.
I know it was so
Okay.
good.
Yeah. So we're about to transition to what we call our lightning round. And we're going to ask you a series of questions that we kind of try to ask every person who comes on. But first one is just special for you. A Chicago hot dog or a Detroit coney?
Ah, I love them both. I do. I mean, I've had a bunch of Chicago dogs as growing up there, living in the city, or not growing up, but living there for 17 years. But I'm gonna tell you, man, I'm into that Coney. I'm all about Detroit now, dude. I mean, like that's anything Detroit, I'm pushing for, man. I love it.
Okay. What are you reading?
What am I reading right now? What am I? I'm reading. I'm reading one of Malcolm Gladwell's books. God, I can't think of the name of it right now. I can't leave, but I'm reading one of his books. I was reading. Actually, I'm reading another book. Was telling me the history of Detroit.
Okay.
And it's called Black in Detroit, and that's the one that's been really interesting. I've been skipping around reading that, but it's basically telling you the history of how blacks migrated to Detroit, and talking about, I live in a 110-year-old house, so understanding the history of Detroit when my house was built, and so forth. So it's just been very interesting, and understanding like how black people in the city of Detroit, what they've done, and just all the things that have happened in Detroit. So it's just, I'm trying to familiarize myself as much as I can, because living in Chicago for 17 years, and knowing that place very well and being very connected here, even though I have a name and I went to U of M, I'm still, more people know probably me than I know them, or know how this city came about. Like understanding about the riots and when that happened, and what was going on before then and then after. It's like I'm very interested in that, and so I've been reading up about that and just trying to understand this city as best I can.
Okay. What are you listening to?
Well, my kids control all the music all the time, so I'm listening to a lot of Shakira, Beyonce. No, I listen to everything. That's what I love about Detroit. It's an R&B city. I love R&B. I listen to gospel music as well, but that's what I love about this city, man. I listen to anything R&B is on, and it's always on my radio or playing around the house any time.
Okay. What are you watching?
Oh man, man. You guys asked some good questions. My wife and I, we binge watch a ton of stuff. I'm trying to think something that's good that we've watched.
Ozark just dropped today.
Oh, did it, man?
Yes.
We started that, and then we got off of it because we started watching something else. But obviously we did back in the day. We used to do Breaking Bad, and I'm trying to think. We finished one the other night. It's Dr. Foster. I think we just watched that. I mean, I watch a bunch of stuff, man. Whatever,
Whatever the kids and the wife tell you to watch.
When the kids go to sleep, my wife likes to slip in and make me watch Housewives a few times. I try to not do that if I don't have to, but
That's one of my guilty pleasures.
the boss always runs it, so
Yes,
whatever
sir.
she wants to watch, that's what we have to watch.
Where do you like to go eat in the city? Or what's your favorite
Man,
restaurant in
there's some
Detroit?
good places, man. Last night I went to Vertical. That was a great place. I go to Selden Standard, She Devil. That's a great place. No, it's funny. Living in Chicago, there's, restaurants everywhere, and my wife and I, after living there for a long time, became foodies. So, but living in Detroit, there's some sweet spots. Like I said, Selden Standard is always a good one I like to go to. Apparatus Room, I love that place as well. I try to, I entertain a lot, so I try to hit up as many places as I can.
Okay, that's what I say. And kind of know some people say it's the same thing, but where do you like to socialize in the city?
Uh, you know, a lot of times, I'm a big fan of floods, man. I love floods. I know. I love floods, man. That
The
live
old
band.
man in the
I'm an old
club.
man.
Okay.
No, but I love live music, man.
Yeah.
So that or
You been to
Baker's.
okay? So
Yeah,
you've been to
I
Bakers.
love those
Okay.
places, man. I mean, I love just the culture of just music here and the way people hang out. It's just cool. I mean, obviously with the pandemic, you can't get out like we used to, but hopefully that will transition. I'm gonna tell you a place I really love, and it's not a place to hang out, but like when I first got moved here for summer, we moved in June, and going to Shane Park, man, I just love that place. I mean, I live on the east side, so man, I love that. I mean, just living in Chicago, you go to a venue like that afterward you see, everybody's gonna be fighting and stuff going on. Like it was just very just subtle. People just going to see a concert and just good hangout, good time. And I mean, I don't know. I like Shane Park. I try to
You ever
spend as
did
much
it on
time.
a boat? You been on a
Nah,
boat? And did?
I haven't. I need to. I guess I need to get in better relationships. I need to. Maybe I need to hang out with you.
Oh, no. We work on that
Yeah,
together.
yes, definitely.
So, if a friend of yours was coming to town, what was something you tell them they'd have to do while they were in Detroit?
I would I like the DIA. I love going in there. I love
Okay.
looking. My mother-in-law went her master's is in art and she's an artist and she a big collector of black art and so we have a ton of black art like in our house now and we buy a lot of black art as well and I think DIA I would definitely go to. I love that place and just art in general. I mean, I think that's something that my family has gotten me into. My wife and my mother-in-law. So I would do that. Obviously, the other museums are around here, but I would just ride around, man, and just see the culture, man, and see. For me, I love because living in Chicago is so many people. And there's, when you drive somewhere, it takes so long to get places. Detroit, is not as many people, but it's just as big and spread out. So just driving from the east side to the west side, man, it's just two different worlds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just love driving around, man. Detroit's it's if you think at one point in time, Detroit was the richest city in America at one point in time.
Wow.
When you think about auto and all the barons that have come through here, so there's a strong history in Detroit that people really don't talk about, and I think that's what intrigues me about it.
Yeah. No, I remember. It's interesting. I didn't never. It's funny you say I never knew that, but I knew at one point in time Oakland County was like the third richest county in the nation. And that was and that's how U of M got to be so big because all of that
Yeah,
automobile money
yeah,
sending those kids there.
but you had, I mean, like, just doing the history of my house, like, there were big lumber baron families that, I mean, there's been a lot of industries that, people have made a ton of money, and so, I think, it's funny. I was saying my house is 100 and some years old, and reading the history of that, this is the second pandemic my house has been through. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
put it, the whole Spanish flu. I mean, reading about that and seeing the mass same with what we're living with now. It's just interesting to me. I love history.
That's fine. So last question is, where can we find you?
Anywhere, man. I'm here. I mean, as far as you mean social media,
Social media,
social
whatever.
media?
It's the time to plug yourself. Shameless self-promotion.
I'm not a big social media person, but I'm on. I think Twitter. I'm at Irons, Jarrett, and obviously I'm on Facebook. But I mean, I'm around. You look me up, man. You Google me. I'm
We
gonna be
got you
around.
here.
So, yeah, you got me here. I mean, obviously when you reached out to me, I got right back to you. So no, but I'm at that stage in my life where I want to do more and give back and use whatever things I've done in the past or my relationships to help. And I think this city lends to that. I think that there's a lot of things that are that are going to come down the pikeway for me because I'm a give back type of guy, and I love being around people. I'm a people person, and I want to help in any way I can. So That's all I got on that.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us today, man. We
Oh,
really
anytime.
appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you.
go blue.
Yeah. Go blue. What is the outro? Oh, good Lord. I'm like, man, we haven't recorded in so long.
We're rusty.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been the Distinctly Detroit podcast. I'm your host, Fyodor Ship. Thank you, and see you next time. Thank you for listening to the DDP. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please rate, review, and subscribe. This podcast is directed and produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Mackenzie Hewitt, writing contributions by James Neely and Florence Alexander.